hesitance when the judge was doing his address to the jury, and he reached the same point that was a bit difficult to answer. But that's all about me. To come back to the book, and I'm not doing badly for time, that was the truth bit. When I came to write it, I sent it to the publishers who said, well, you can't sell short stories. We quite like the one, I called it Mona Lisa at that time. We quite like Mona Lisa. Why don't you write that out as a book, full length? So I had to put it into context, because another friend, in fact the great Lord Bingham, who wrote a little bit at the front of the book on my behalf, said you've got to get it in context of time, and nobody is used nowadays to people being hung. So I suggest you try somehow to get it in the right time context. So I did that by writing a first chapter, which was all about, I have to say, a chap called Tam Pierce, who came from Devon, and by coincidence I come from Devon, and Tam Pierce, in some respects, is a little bit autobiographical, the book about him. But not, I hasten to add, in every respect, because coming back to the fiction part, I expand on the trial to see it through the eyes of the judge, and after all I had been a judge of sorts, a recorder myself, and had one or two stories about judges to tell. How the judge sees it, how the doctor sees it, because in the book Tam Pierce takes quite a fancy to the doctor. And my wife is not a doctor, but she is a physiotherapist. But in any event, through their eyes, through the eyes of the cop, the policeman, and that allows me to put in one or two highly defamatory but true bits about what the police sometimes get up to themselves. When they know, certainly in their own minds, that a man is guilty, they can sometimes stretch things a little bit, be sure that justice is done, but justice has to be done in the right way. They sometimes do things like the verbal. The verbal is putting words into a defendant's mouth. The supreme example, which oddly enough I have known actually happen more than once, is it's a fair cop go. Actually happens. Police say defendants say that. All I know, it actually happens that defendants do say that. But personally, I don't believe they do very often. Anyhow, to come back to the book, you see the same trial through their eyes, with a little bit of reminiscence of their own. And then you get on to pure fiction. And the pure fiction is that Irene Mary Duke, who in fact is still living, because the outcome of the trial was, as I said, she was sent to Broadmoor. So I thought before I wrote the book I'd better find out what had happened to her. Ran up Broadmoor, explained my interest, and said, is the lady still there? And the lady on the other end of the phone said, oh, no, she's not. And I said, well, she's been discharged. They said, yes. I said, when was she discharged? And they said, well, I'm afraid we can't tell you that. Patient confidentiality. My own guess is that my own doctor was right, who said, when the stress of the trial and everything else is over, she will recover her powers of speech and will be as sane as you or I. That they wouldn't tell me. So I've had to fictionalize it. In the fiction version, there is a raid on the house in North London by the police in search of arms, because they knew about Henry Duke. And in reality, there was a raid on the house. In reality, the raid found nothing, because there'd been a tip-off. In fiction, again, it found nothing. But one of the police officers who had been told to search the bedroom at 5:30 in went upstairs, finds a form under the bedclothes. Henry Duke has been taken downstairs. By this time he's become Henry Earl in the book. And Irene, by this time she's become Isabel, is lying in bed. And she doesn't actually wear anything in bed in the fiction version. I don't know what Irene really wore. But in the fiction version, the rather handsome young detective police officer is searching the dressing table when he sees in the mirror a form come out of bed, and it's a rather young, rather attractive, completely naked lady, and he sees her struggling to get into her pants and her bra, and suddenly hears her say, "You're peeping," because she's looked up and seen him watching her in the mirror. So you can guess, because you've all got good imaginations, what happens in the fiction version. And what happens in the fiction version is that before he's called off from the search, he has time to establish contact with the lovely Isabel. And Isabel is not such a fool, and I've always found that women certainly are not fools. And Isabel has suspected for a long time what is going on. Isabel has noticed that her husband is out very late at night without any reasonable excuse. She has noticed traces of lipstick, etc., and other traces, etc., which have made her think. And so, when an approach is made to her by this attractive young officer, the time is ripe, as they say. She's young and attractive, he's young and attractive, she's neglected, and he's prepared to be very attentive. So, as I say, you can guess what happens, and you can read about it if you haven't already in the book. It goes on in the book because she's really quite an old-fashioned girl, and she insists on marriage. And so what happens? Her husband, you'll remember, is dead. She has an affair with the young officer. He leaves the police, and they both come and live in Richmond. Why Richmond? I find it so much easier to write about what you actually know than to have to make it all up. So they come and live in Richmond.
Can I just jump in there?
Yeah.
You know, saying about how you write about what you know.
Yes.
And I was just looking at some of the people who have read the book already. The case of Isabel Earle obviously stuck in your mind.
Yes.
Was it the woman herself, or was it the actual case that intrigued you?
Well, a bit of both. She was quite an attractive woman. She was the only client I had ever had, or ever did have, who I never spoke to. She did seem at one time to, when I finished my speech to the jury, which I actually hope went down reasonably well, although it didn't succeed, I thought maybe she did give a sort of half smile or a half wink or some kind of look which seemed to indicate she wasn't completely in the skies, because she just sat in the dock looking up. Of course they couldn't, she wouldn't, when asked to plead, how do you say, are you guilty of murder or not? She just didn't say anything. So the judge said that enter a verdict not guilty. So she did intrigue me, that the whole thing intrigued me, because I felt it was so difficult not being able to talk to her.